just give a little bit about myself. 2, talk about the Office of Secretary of State, and then 3rd, talk about the campaign. So hopefully we can get through those 3 things, and I'll also be happy to answer any questions. About myself, I grew up in northern Arizona near Page, a small community on the Navajo Nation. And my family is from the Monument Valley area of the reservation. In fact, my grandfather still is with us, and he was a code talker during World War II. So if you would like, I think you could find a picture of him online. His name is Sam Holliday, and I saw him 3 weeks ago up in Winter Rock, and he said, grandson, I'm very proud of the work that you're doing. Keep up the great work. And then the code talkers went down the line in the parade. So I got to speak to him briefly about that, but he was very proud about what we were doing collectively. I left Page and I went to the United States Naval Academy, graduated in '93, and then I did 2 tours overseas, first as an infantry officer, second as a reconnaissance officer. And back then, I was not a hippie. I actually had a high and tight. And so this has been because I'm no longer in the military. I would shudder to think what my friends would tease me with if I went back and see them. In fact, I did a couple months ago. I went back to DC and met up with my old classmates, and they looked at me and they were stunned. They were like, "Oh, yes, it's me. Remember all that teasing you made of me?" Because here's a quick joke. They were saying, "Wow, Chris, this was back when we were freshmen at the academy. They said, 'Wow, you don't really shave, do you?' And they would make fun of me, and I said, 'Well, yeah, but I still have my hair when I'm 39. So that has come true, and I reminded them at that moment, and they laughed, of course, but it was great.
Also tell them you're an original American.
Right. So after the Marines, it was in the Marine Corps that I picked up a lot of the management, leadership, as well as the supervisory skills to run an office in our government. As the executive officer for 1st Recon Company, I managed over 160 Marines, up to 8 departments with department heads and multi-million-dollar budgets. We were responsible to the larger 1st Marine Corps division, which also was 1/3 of the Marine Corps, and so we were affecting policies on a large scale. But I was responsible to making sure that our troops were ready, were prepared so that they would get the job done for our units overseas. After I left the Corps, I left as a major in the Marine Corps, so I hold that rank today. I came back to Arizona, got my law degree, got my master's in engineering concurrently, and so I worked hard to basically set up what I thought would be my career, and that was establish a law practice that works in developing energy projects all over the country. And my clientele are folks who do renewable energy, but I also happen to believe in a balanced energy portfolio, meaning we are making the progression to new technologies, and so I tend to think we have to find that balance, and so I've worked for a number of clients, and so I have direct experience with renewable energy systems, as well as developing jobs, building economies, and helping governments. And so I think I'm uniquely positioned and qualified to address those issues, many of which our candidates this cycle seem to be talking about. Some of them, right? So when I moved back up, my wife and I, let me just say that I got my degree from Arizona State. Can you hear it? But my wife, Sean, is a U of A graduate from the College of Law. So I get the boo and then the yay. So we have 2 little ones who are back in the room, and sometimes we don't know what to call them sometimes. I don't know if they're sun cats or wild devils or something like that, but it's a mix in our household, and we really enjoy the fact that we feel like we are part of the whole state because of our affiliation with Phoenix and Tucson. As a state representative, I was elected out of northern Arizona, and in that capacity, it was my first dealings with the Secretary of State. This was in 2008. I ran for office, and what I learned about was that we still have problems with the law itself. There are ambiguities in our law that create situations where there's voter suppression, disenfranchisement, and then failure between the government, the Office of Secretary of State, and the local counties and their county officials. It was in my race that was highlighted, and we had to go to court to basically say, look, there is a process that the county recorders can implement, and that it dealt with the issue of P.O. boxes for rural Arizonans and their ability to then use their addresses to nominate folks on a nomination petition. As a state representative, I worked to address that. We fixed that law so that is not an issue for rural Arizona, but it also clarifies those addresses for folks who live in the city, so it actually works for the benefit of the entire state. It went through the House and the Senate with no opposition, and it was signed into law. So we fixed that. That's not going to be an issue starting in 2011. Thank you. And then the other law that I worked on was a law that brings more expertise to the 3-member committee that makes recommendations on our voting machines. What I said was they're missing an expert. If anybody ever challenged the recommendations, it would probably fail in a court of law, because what you don't have is somebody qualified under our laws who could render an opinion on these voting machines. And so it was the first step to trying to strengthen the integrity of our elections. And so that also went through with no opposition, signed into law. And that was not bad for a first-time legislator, somebody who was looking to work to address this area. And I've worked, in fact, to secure the support not only of the Republicans, but actually my opponent in getting these laws through and become effective for our state. When I signed up for this race, we took a hard look at it, and folks said that this is going to be a tough run for you. The question I got up early was, how do you think you're qualified? And I told folks, look, 10 years in the Marine Corps, all the leadership management experience that I got, qualified as an attorney engineer, as well as a state representative who's gotten laws passed in our government. But also, what I had told my constituents up in northern Arizona, we need strong leaders who can make good decisions, who are independent thinkers, and are willing to work on both sides. And so that's what has been at the core of my campaign, being able to say, look, we may disagree on some areas, we may have opposite opinions, but I hope you can respect who I am and use that as a beginning so that we can not only take the opportunity, but actually work towards some solutions. And I think that has worked a lot with my colleagues on the other side. I've been strong in a number of issues. I've voted hard to protect our education. I think that's a critical issue. I've worked really hard to earn the support and of the environmental community, the conservative conservation groups. I've worked hard to do that. But I think I've made the decisions that are going to be beneficial for the state. And so now, as a candidate for Secretary of State, what I'm working hard on is making sure that we are upholding a vision that is inclusive, protecting the integrity of our elections, and working hard to run an open, fair, and transparent office that is professionally responsive on day one. So I'm working hard. That includes not only the duties as the Secretary of State, as a Chief Elections Officer, but also somebody who is responsive to our businesses and to our government when it comes to those main responsibilities. And so I think amongst all the things that I'm doing, priority that I'm going to start with is what I call a comprehensive top-down review. That is looking at not only our machines, but our laws, and also figuring out how we can become more engaging with not only our leadership, but also our communities. And so I'm looking for that opportunity. And so I'm working hard all over the state, and I think I've been blessed to meet folks all over the state to help us with that. Just to kind of close my comments on the campaign to where we're at right now. We came out of the primary, won every county in the state, which was tremendous. I thought that was great. We came out, as you saw, the numbers were very strong. 25 points, I think, was the margin that we came out with. And I think it's a function of folks are looking for qualified, proven leaders who are about getting the job done, but also looking at an alternative to the leadership that Arizona has. And I think people are very proud to say we do have alternatives. We have qualified people who represent our entire state. And so I leave it to them, and I hope that they continue this message as we go into the general. Right now, We have internal polls. We also have polls that from my opponents that put us no further than 6 points away. That means that the error of margin is also 4.5 points, so we're actually a point down. So it is a neck and neck race with 20% that is still undecided. And so what I call it is first one to the finish line is the one who's going to raise the dollars who get their messages out. So I think for us, that is why we're working hard not only to get our message out, but also hopefully earn the support and confidence, but also the dollars to help us with our campaign. And so that's where it's at. We are poised, I think, throughout the entire state. And one other thing I want to just say in closing, the tribes have never been engaged in a way that they could this cycle. And I've gone to the 21 tribes in the state of Arizona and gotten up to 15 of the direct support. We're working on the other 5 to 6 in a way that says, look, what I need from the tribal communities is as many of you to register to vote, then vote, because there's a population in the rural parts of the state, about 90 to 100,000 natives who could turn out to vote, but in the urban parts of the state, as high as another 100,000 in Phoenix, Flagstaff, and Tucson. So what we're working on. So what we're working on is I've hired a team, 2 field organizers. Their sole job is to make sure that we get as many new voters, new registered voters, but also as many folks to engage in this election, because I think they have an opportunity to make history, as well as I think the state has an opportunity to change its direction, and that collectively we're going to change some things for the state of Arizona. So that's what I think I'm able to do for the party. Of course, our priorities are to elect folks like Terry and the ticket up and down, because I think Democrats are just as strong, are equally dedicated to our state and our country. And so I hope that as we get energized in these last 30 days, you help me, but also help the others, because that's what I'm doing, trying to help as many Democrats up and down. And so I'll leave it at that. I want to thank you again for the opportunity to share a few words. And in our way, thank you again. Thank you.